So good afternoon, everyone. This is Pastor Marquette Curl, the senior pastor of the Rock Kyle. I pray that you guys are having a blessed afternoon thus far, wherever you are. Just want to give everyone a few moments to join in to our Tuesday Tip broadcast. I always look forward to joining you or being with you every Tuesday at noon on your lunch hour. I know that you have a lot of things that you normally do on your lunch hour, so I pray that this time that we have together, you're able to be blessed by the few moments that we have to spend together here on Periscope. So I'm going to give everyone a few moments out there to join in to the broadcast on today. I pray that you're having a blessed day wherever you are. Praying for those throughout the country that have been experiencing some rough weather. I know the Midwest have been hit pretty hard by tornadoes, and there's some tragedies there in Oklahoma on yesterday. So we're praying for all of those families that have been affected by the storms there in the Midwest over the past couple of days. Also, just want to make sure that we are continuing to just keep each other lifted in prayer during this time. There's a lot of things going on in the world, so we got to keep everybody lifted up. So I want you to go ahead and invite your followers into the broadcast on today. We'll not be with you very long. Our Tuesday Tip is normally about a 10 to 12 minute broadcast or less. So I want you to go ahead and invite your followers in. Want you to go ahead and if you have an iPhone, I believe you swipe from left to right. If you have an Android phone, I believe it's from the bottom to the top. But we want you to go ahead and invite your followers in to the broadcast on today as we talk a little bit about what it means to have the proper perspective in life and how important it is for your perspective to be right, and how when your perspective is off, how it can change everything that happens out there. So I want to give everybody a few more minutes to join in on today. Thank you guys that have joined in thus far. Please invite your followers in. We've got a few followers in right now, so I want to get a few more followers in before we begin the broadcast. I don't want to wait too long, but I do want to give everyone a chance to have the notification pop up on their phone to let them know that I have gone live with the Tuesday Tip. Of course, preferably you guys are pretty familiar with how Periscope works. There's no like buttons on Periscope, so the way that you are able to like what's being said is you just tap the screen, and by tapping the screen, there's little hearts that will flutter on the screen. That's just basically it's a like on Periscope. So therefore, as I'm saying some things that are being impactful, as I'm saying some things that are blessing you, then make sure that you tap the screen to let me know, that, hey, you're saying some good stuff. And, if I'm saying some good things, you can type a message on the screen that says, great job, great word, great point. Whatever the case may be, but, I try to make this time as quick but as interactive and effective as I possibly can to try to be a blessing to you. So once again, thank you so much for joining in on today to our Tuesday Tip broadcast. It's about 12:04, so I want to go ahead and get started with those that are on thus far. So I want to talk to you guys briefly about perception and reality. And, that's something that's major. You guys have heard the terminology before, that perception is reality. And oftentimes, depending upon how we look at things in life, how we look at the seasons that we're going through, how we look at the things that are happening in our life. You guys have heard the old adage, is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? Well, depending upon how you look at it will determine what you see. If your vantage point is from above and you're looking down, then you may see the glass as being half full. If you're from beneath and you're looking up, then you may see the glass as being half empty. So really, life is about your perspective and understanding. If you have the wrong perspective, then it can totally mess you up. On this past Sunday, I had the pleasure and honor of preaching a Mother's Day message from the book of Ruth, in Ruth chapter 1, verses 6 through 22. And at the end of the chapter 1, in verse 22, you see Ruth and her daughter Naomi, and her daughter Ruth, are returning back from Moab, and they're returning back to Bethlehem, and they returned back at the time of harvest. And Naomi comes back during a time, and it's a time that's an opportune time that's been designed by God and designated by God to be a blessing to her and her family, because God has a plan already for Naomi. But since Naomi's perspective was a little off, then it changed how she viewed what she was about to step into. So therefore, it's important to understand, because God was going to bless her. God was putting her in a great position, but she couldn't see it as being something great simply because her perception was off. Her perspective of what she was looking at was different. And so it's important for you guys to understand how important perception is. Perception is kind of how we view things based upon situation and circumstances, but there's a better definition of perception that I want to share with you, which is what's called selective perception. Now, selective perception is when I block out information that does not line up with what I expected. Pastor, can you help me with that? I block out things that don't line up with what I expected. You have something happen and you expected a different results. You were expecting, because you did A, you expected B to happen. We won't, if we just be very honest, even though we serve God, some things we do, we have selfish motivations. We do something, we're expecting God to respond a certain way. So we pray expecting a response. We give and expect to receive something back. That's just our human nature. So therefore, what happens when you give? What happens when you do something? What happens when you have an expectation, but the results that happen don't line up with what you expected? And so therefore, that's called selective perception. So selective perception means that I block out anything that does not line up with what I wanted to happen or what I expected to happen, which now makes me not view my current situation properly. So therefore, what the enemy does, the enemy is a master at selective perception and getting you to look at things incorrectly. So therefore, you've got to understand that the enemy is going to try to keep you blind to what God is really doing. And just because we're going through a rough season or a rough stage of life, that rough stage of life, that does not mean that it's something that's going to be permanent. That rough stage of life doesn't mean that it's something that's going to be long-term, because it's just a season. But sometimes we can mistake a season for a state of life simply based upon our selective perception. So it's important for you right now to understand what's happening in your life and have the right perspective. The Bible says that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose, according to Romans 8:28. So therefore, you've got to ask yourself, are the things that are happening in my life right now, am I looking at them wrong? Do I have the wrong perspective about life? Am I looking at things as a glass half empty versus a glass half full? Am I looking at the struggles and the fight and I don't see it as something that is beneficial? If you've ever studied and looked at science, I'm a big time nature person. I like watching nature because God's handiwork is just amazing. And one of the things I love is I love watching the process of a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. It's a beautiful process, because in that process, you have this caterpillar that goes into a cocoon and it goes through this metamorphosis. And during this metamorphosis phase, he's actually inside the cocoon and he's growing. But in order for the actual butterfly to emerge from the cocoon, he has to eat his way out, and he has to fight his way out. And by fighting his way out and eating his way out, he eats his way out to get strengthened. And by being strengthened, it strengthens his wings, which allows him to be able to fight his way out. And once he comes out, he doesn't look anything like the caterpillar that went into the cocoon. And so that's what God is trying to do in your life. He's trying to help to use this season of your life to strengthen you, to make you stronger, to make you into something greater, but you will abort the process if you don't have the right perspective and understand what God is actually doing. And he's saying that all these things that are happening are working together for your good, which means these things are just meant to make you stronger. They're not meant to take you out. But if you don't have the right perspective and you're not perceiving things properly, then you're going to always be in trouble. So therefore, when I perceive, that means that I'm in my flesh, because I want to make sure that I'm discerning what God is saying, which is I'm tapped into the Spirit of God. So therefore, I just want to make sure that I continue to encourage you to have the right perspective, because if your perspective is off, you begin to believe that, then that perspective can become your reality. And now you begin to respond and do things that don't line up with what God is calling you to do. Don't let a temporary situation, a temporary season have long-term effects in your life because you made the wrong decision, because you didn't understand what God was trying to do in this season of life. So I pray that you were blessed by our few moments together. I pray that this word was encouraging to someone out there to stay in the fight, stay in the battle. God says that he will never leave you, nor will he ever forsake you. We understand that the things we're going through right now, this light affliction, this temporary thing, does not compare to the glory that has yet to be revealed in your life. So I pray that you were encouraged by this brief word on today. I pray that you're able to have the right perception and perceive things properly. So therefore, you may have come to the truth of the reality of what God is trying to do in your life, because he's made you to be an overcomer. He's made you to be great, but you've got to believe it. So thank you so much for joining me on today. I pray that you were blessed by this time together. Please go back and share this broadcast on Periscope. Invite your followers in to go ahead and check out the broadcast. Make sure that you can go back on the next 24 hours here on Periscope and see the broadcast. Also, I'll be uploading this to my YouTube channel as well, Mark Weck Curl Ministries on YouTube. So make sure that you go check out today's broadcast and some other broadcasts that are out there as well. So just want to thank you so much for joining in today. I know that you have a lot of things during your lunch hour, so I thank you for spending just a few moments with me. Just listen to what I have to say and talk about the things of God. So thank you so much. God bless you. I'm praying for you. Please be praying for me on this week. See you next Tuesday at noon for the Tuesday tip. God bless.